Hamas does not believe in Palestine. Yasser Arafat did not define the borders of Palestine. When he declared the independence of Palestine, he said wherever Palestinians are is Palestine. So now all these people who have been indoctrinated on Palestine in the United States, in Europe, everybody swearing by the name of Palestine, they are all Palestinians. So Palestine is global right now.
What we, the Israeli public, the Israeli people, what we're missing in Hamas, what we don't understand in this Muslim Brotherhood organization?
This is a very brutal war, and people get tired. This is what Hamas wanted from the beginning. They wanted a very complicated war by dragging a democratic state into the mud of terrorist mindset. So they say don't fight with a pig because you will only get dirty and the pig will like it. And this is the same reality that we are dealing with. And we walked right into Hamas trap. So today, terrorists are calling the shots, and democracies around the world are submitting to their demands, rewarding them, thinking by rewarding terrorism, the problem is going to go away.
What do you think about the Palestinian Authority?
The Palestinian Authority pose an existential threat to the state of Israel and to the stability of the region. And as you see today, they have been playing a global game. Their interest is not a Palestinian statehood. Their interest is a global status, and the conflict gives them significance. And when I say they, I mean the PLO, the Palestinian Authority. Hamas run a narrow-minded group of people that it's much easier to counter. But my problem with those globalists who know how to play the big game, that they use the suffering of what's so-called Palestinians to build a global empire. And as you see, they are spreading. The Palestinian Authority used the international aid and the donors' money that was meant to build infrastructure, to educate the new generation, to create peaceful generation, to help the local economy. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this purpose, they have been spending most of their budget on a global game where they have their embassies, their delegations, incitement, recruiting fifth column in Europe, in the United States, in Australia to spread false narrative and false accusations of apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, occupation. And all these accusations are actually in violation to the Oslo Accords, which basically does not mention any two-state solution, does not mention anything about occupation. It's negotiations in good faith towards peace. And the Palestinian Authority failed miserably reaching that goal. Beginning of pay-to-slay program, funding terrorism, then incitement, then recruiting a huge army of diplomats around the world. Just think of their budget. You know, they are totally dependent on the donations of the West. Why they should have embassies all over the world? How much money we are spending on such operation, and what's the goal? The goal is to delegitimize Israel, because this is how the Palestinian Authority gets legitimacy. They cannot get legitimacy through building a nation, through being an example of a constructive example of transforming a revolution into a nation which could qualify eventually to statehood. They are doing totally the opposite, and this is a very, very dangerous game that they are playing. And I wonder what would satisfy their ambition. I'm afraid a statehood or even the destruction of the state of Israel is not going to satisfy their ambition.
I don't like the word solution, but what should Israel do with the Palestinian Authority as an interim stage, as an interim step?
So the Palestinian Authority's function is a governing authority for the majority Arab cities in Judea and Samaria. And I don't mind this. They can keep the security, they can build economy, they can provide education, civil administration. But to become a hostile entity that would continue on clashing with a totally developed country, a democracy that has Arabs, Jews, Christians, Druze, and many other ethnicities and religions is suicidal, and it will never lead to peace in the region. So they must know their position and their status. Why Israel allowed them from the beginning to enter here? And that was peacemaking, not continuous attempts to defame and to delegitimize Israel globally by spreading lies, manipulating Westerner value. So this is a very dangerous game, and I think there is no fruitful result out of it. In Judaism, Moses told his followers that God laid before you life and death. Choose life. Very beautiful thing that had also impact on my life. The essence of Israel, to choose life, while the other side praising suicide bombing. You know, for my crime that I opposed their violence, my crime that I said no to suicide bombing attacks, no to targeting civilians indiscriminately, and they made me into a traitor, and they put a death sentence over my head, and they took all my securities. They shunned me. So what does that tell you? And today is the same thing. Anybody who try to question the Palestinian violence become immediately a criminal or a genocidal or a child killer
or Islamophobic.
And we tell them, you know, all these crimes that you see in Gaza is basically committed by the same enemy, and that is jihadists and Islamists. Palestinianism, the very foundation of Palestinianism, relies on jihad. It's all about jihad concepts. They use the name Palestine because it's fancy, but at essence, Palestine and Islam are very similar. Two non-existential entities. One relies on the destruction of Israel, and the other one relies on the destruction of civilization. Not only Western civilization, all civilizations. If you go to India, you are going to have the same problem, and the problem is Muslim versus Hindu, Muslim versus Christian, Muslim versus Jews. And yes, religions can clash. Muslims are the only religion, or Islam is the only religion, that points out the Jews in their holy book more than 42 times. Well, this is a problem, and the world is in denial. Say, no, this is for Palestine. And we tell them, no, Hamas does not believe in Palestine. Yasser Arafat did not define the borders of Palestine. When he declared the independence of Palestine in 1980, asked him, what are the borders of this Palestine? He said, wherever Palestinians are is Palestine. So now all these people who have been indoctrinated on Palestine in the United States, in Europe, everybody swearing by the name of Palestine, they are all Palestinians. So Palestine is global right now, and it's not coincidental that they chant globalize the intifada. What does that even mean? And if their fight was only for land and for borders, they would fight within those borders, say this is a legitimate fight for our land, right? But since the beginning of the Palestinian movement in 1964, we have witnessed global terrorism, commercial airline hijacking, getting the Olympics, killing diplomats. They killed the U.S. ambassador in Khartoum.
In the Olympic Games, crafts, all over.
Like, for example, Yasser Arafat, while the CIA was listening, along with Abu Jihad, gave his people in Khartoum to kill the American ambassador. The CIA have recordings of this. Years later, the United States rewarded him as a peacemaker. It's hard to believe how these people keep getting away with their crimes. What was the name of the American presidential candidate? Kennedy?
Kennedy was assassinated.
He was assassinated by Palestinian. Sarhan. Sarhan. There is no limit to the Palestinian ambition. And it was never about land. It was never about Israel. It's about power. And I will never forget the Palestinians celebrating 9/11.
I remember it. It was in Salah ad-Din. They gave candies. Maybe in Ramallah they did the same.
Yes. And for how many years Palestinians considered America as an enemy? Today, many Americans, under the influence of Palestinian indoctrination and hateful propaganda against the Jews, have forgotten the long the ally of the United States, loyal to the United States, Israel, and they are befriending the enemy of the United States. Sooner or later, they will realize that this infiltration into the United States will be disastrous. I rage because I know the outcome. If desire, man's desire or ambition, is not leashed by principles and discipline, is leading to total destruction. And how many people out there with burning desire to dominate the world. And this is my problem with Islam. That I say, the way to peace is not through dominating and converting every soul on earth to become a slave to Allah, hypothetical entity. This is not the way. And if this was the way, show me the example. Show me how you treat your women. Show me how you raise your children. Show me your qualities so I can maybe believe.
There is no such a good example up to now.
So from their fruits you know them. And to be living in such darkness and such ignorance with global ambitions, thinking that they have the superior or the higher moral ground over all other religions is wrong. And this is why I am fighting against them. And for all those who identify as Muslims, such false identities will not lead to righteousness, and it will lead only to more chaos. Today is very hard for the world to understand this because they think that the majority of Muslims are not violent people. And I agree with that. But what's hard to understand, how come Muslims identify with something that they completely oppose? And you ask them about the Sharia law, the majority of Muslims say no. Tell them, it's like, do you believe in cutting people's hands for robbery? They say no. Do you believe in stoning women to death because of shame? They say no. Do you believe in killing non-Muslims? They say no. Then I tell them, why do you identify as Muslim? So on one hand, they give legitimacy to a sick belief system, still in public, a peaceful version of Islam that does not exist. This is a big, huge hypocrisy that is not leading to righteousness. Same thing with Islam trying to replace Judaism. I wish that Islam was original idea of a self-realization. So many enlightened people came to a certain realization that shed light on life, and they transformed their society without the claim of being God's messenger, but to steal everything from Judaism and say, I am the new version of Judaism is very, very offensive. It's very offensive. And look where we're at right now. It's still the same attempt to replace Judaism. They don't believe in diversity. And I hope that one day they will come to realize that the universal design depends on diversity. They can practice their religion. They don't turn it into violence. I don't have a problem. Like, for example, my mother, I'm sure today she's praying 5 times a day. If she's praying, would I go and insult her devotion to the God that she knows? I would never do that. I would never do that to all those followers of Muhammad who want to pray and express their devotion between them and their God. I don't have problem.
I don't have problem with them as well.
Yes, I don't have problem with the Sufis, but if to me it becomes a problem if I see them on the sidewalks of New York making political statement or praying in big groups in London to intimidate the public, or hitting themselves in big Shi'i demonstration, Ashura, hurting their physical body to provocate their rage. This is a problem. So basically, going back to our work, we need to bring the people together. And anyone who is really willing to drop their false identity, to drop their ego and see the human potential and to work together.